All right, so we got a lot to talk about today because, well, I brought the FN 509 Tactical back to life. So the last time that we made a video on the FN 509 Tactical, it died. Basically, at around 2,100 rounds, the firing pin broke. And I didn't know if that was like a common theme or if maybe I just kind of had one that was just slipped through the cracks of quality control. I was actually testing a compensator, which we are going to talk about these compensators here in a second because there's a lot you guys should know about different compensators for this gun. Right after that video, I went ahead and I ordered another OEM firing pin. And I was like, well, that fixes this, but how do I know it's not going to happen again? Because after I made that video, so many people started commenting, hey, mine just broke at like 200 rounds. And then on Instagram, people were messaging me saying, hey, this is my best friend's gun, sending me a picture of it, showing me their broken firing pins. And I don't know if FN has officially addressed this yet, but I think we have a 100% fix for this where you don't got to worry about your firing pin breaking again, because that just sucks and that's dangerous, especially if you're going to use it for self-defense. Also, I learned a cool little trick on how to predict if your firing pin's going to break and if it's getting close to breaking. It's not 100%, but it's a cool little trick. And then I wanted to kind of go over these two different compensators that I have right here. And don't let the looks fool you. It may be the worst, it may be the best, but we'll just have to find out. So let's dive up close real quick. Let's go over the firing pin. Let me show you how I fixed it and how I think I've pretty much bomb-proofed it, hopefully. And then I'm gonna show you some cool stuff that I've learned as well as some very interesting findings. However, if you see anything in this video that you wanna pick up for yourself or check the current pricing on, just follow the first link in the video description. All right, so right off the bat, right now, the way I have this gun set up, I have the Henry holster compensator on it right now. And then right here, I have the War comp. I'm gonna show you what it looks like here in a second and the differences. One thing to be noted, the Henry holster compensator is a little bit longer, and typically longer compensators compensate a little bit better. Also, with that said, you're gonna be very surprised by the results between these two here in a minute when we go over the shooting footage. This one on the top here is a dual port design with one single port at the bottom. Both of them fill in this gap right here where the nose of the gun curves. And then this one is just one giant port that is shaped like a W for war. Little bitty 3 dots on the bottom here. Another interesting thing is this one has a little place for the guide rod to go into to give it, I guess, quote unquote, a cleaner look. Has a little bit of knurling on the side as well as the logo on the top. And this one doesn't have any of that stuff. It just has, it's slanted to fit the same profile as the gun, but nothing fancy about it. Now, something that's interesting, and I'm not gonna actually do it in this video, it comes with these little BBs. I'm guessing they are BBs for a BB gun, and 2 little set screws right here. So these little BBs are super easy to lose, and that bugs the crap out of me. You also get a couple of extra O-rings. One thing I like about the War compensator is it uses a beefier Allen key. That is really nice. The theory of it is you drop one of those little brass BBs into each side, and then when it puts pressure on your barrel, it'll compress those little brass BBs. If they weren't so easy to lose, I'd be all about it. But one thing I do appreciate is how they kind of go in at an angle onto the barrel, which typically seems to keep them from backing out as easily. Now, one thing I noticed with the Henry holster one, it uses a lot smaller of an Allen wrench and there's no little BBs. There it is. It looks beastly on here. It is a different shade than the actual slide. They didn't quite get the shade of the Coyote tan on there correct. However, I totally understand how Cerakote works. You could mix up 3 batches of the same color code, and then those 3 batches are gonna dry at different shades just because of, you know, temperature, humidity, all that other stuff. It does look good. It has a nice little angular slant, but don't let the looks fool you because we're gonna go over the footage here in a minute and you're gonna be shocked by the results. Now, kind of speaking on the compensators a little bit more, if you have a standard FN 509 and you're looking for a threaded barrel, Apex also makes these threaded barrels. I've done a review on these in the past, but I figured I'd mention it for those of you who haven't seen that video. All right, so let me show you the difference between the stock firing pin and the new Apex tactical firing pin. But first we gotta take this bad boy apart. Can you tell which one is which? On the right side, we have the OEM firing pin, and on the left side, we have the new Apex Tactical. When the one that broke, you'll notice how this comes straight back, and then it hits this inflection point, and then it becomes like a cone shape. That's where my original one seared off. And this one is a little bit more skeletonized. So on the new one is more enclosed. There's just a little gap right here. A couple of other things I notice. It says Apex on the side right there. So, you know it's from them. But there's a lot of differences in the geometry up front where the one's seared off. So for one, the Apex one comes to a little bit more of a point than this one. One thing I am curious about is testing the diameter. So this is the OEM. It's reading a 0.061 of an inch, 0.0615. The Apex one is measuring identical. Okay, cool. So where I think they really made an improvement is they made a little bit more of a point there than on the OEM one. So let me show you real quick how you can kind of identify whether or not yours is going to fail or if it's close to failing. I got my shell casings right here. This side is from the old firing pin and this side is from the new firing pin. Let's look at the old one first. Now I forgot the technical name for this, but when we look at how it punctured it, you're gonna notice a little bit of a gash, like the firing pin hit it and then started moving to the side. It's very fascinating looking, and I've never quite seen anything like this on any of my primers before. It just looks atrocious. Here's a couple more. Some are worse than others. You can definitely see that firing pin, when it hits it, it's definitely almost hitting it with either too much force, but it's basically hitting the primer and then skidding across it. And I think that is exactly what's causing the breakage. Now let's look at the ones that I shot using the Apex firing pin. I got both Hornady critical duty and range ammo right here, but you can see here, they're all perfect circles. All perfect circles. Like there's no dragging or anything happening. And then here's two more right there. In my opinion, if you have a 509 or 509 Tactical and your primers are looking like these, it's probably time to get the Apex one. That's just what I'm thinking at this point in time. Aside from the firing pin not dragging on the primer, this also has another huge benefit to it. So let's talk about that, and then let's see which compensator was better. Back up top. Now, the most interesting thing about this firing pin from Apex Tactical is it drastically improved my trigger pull. I mean, drastically. The Apex trigger that I have in here right now, it drastically improved over stock trigger. But there was always this weird little catching feeling that I would feel when I depressed the trigger. I also felt like it would slightly drag on the reset. In that part of the trigger pull, I wasn't really able to fix that. I polished the crap out of all the internals. I polished the crap out of the firing pin. Nothing seemed to fix this little dragging feeling. And then when I put this Apex firing pin in here, it actually made the trigger so much more enjoyable to shoot. And at first I was like, well, maybe this is a fluke, right? Let me take it off my gun and let me put it on this gun that has a stock trigger. So I took it off, put it on my other FN509 that has an OEM trigger. Nothing has been modified on this lower at all except for stippling and Cerakote. Lo and behold, it made the trigger 1,000,000 times better. Watch this. Take up. Even the sound of it is a little different. Here's the reset. Nothing is modified on here. I definitely am gonna get another one of these Apex firing pins, but for this slide right here. Now, if we compare this to the stock firing pin, you can hear the difference in the trigger and see it with your eyes. Check this out. Take up. It almost sounds like there's this muted sound when it breaks. Do the reset. Yeah, I could feel a drag right there. I'll do some before and afters on the sound clips. Maybe you can hear it, maybe you can't. So if your firing pin has broken, you're gonna have to pay at least, I think it's about $25 to $30 for an OEM replacement. Apex heavy duty firing pin striker is about $20 more than that. It's actually not a bad deal. And I'm gonna get another one. Something to note as well, the one thing I love about Apex Tactical is they just take care of business. Their first shipment of them, they realized there was a defect. I originally received the original defective one, and I didn't even have a chance to get it hardly. And they had an email to me, and they did this for everybody that received the defective one. They sent me an email with a shipping label, said, please send it back and we'll replace it free of charge. So I put it in the mailbox, sent it back. A week later, my new firing pin came in. That's awesome. And I've been taking my time with this video because I've really just been putting a lot of rounds through this gun just to see if it's gonna fail. And like I showed you up close with that little trick to looking at your primers to see if it's gonna fail. So far with this firing pin, I think I have 1,700 and some odd rounds through it. And so far, the primer strikes look the same as they did from the first few shots. We're not seeing that jump off course or anything like that. I believe that was the same issue that was going on with the P365s when they first came out with their firing pins breaking as well. 100% recommend it. If anything changes, you know, guys, I will make a video about it and tell you, hey, this one broke too. But right now with 1,700-ish rounds, I can recommend it. I've had one of these compensators now for a little over a year. This was the first compensator that I ever picked up for the 509. However, this one right here, it wasn't made by Harry's Holsters. They had these made by a separate company. And because of that, Patrick from the Firearm Rack was also testing the same exact compensator, and his exploded on him mid-shot. And he called me and he's like, bro, do you still have that compensator? If you haven't subscribed to him, I'll throw a link in the video description. He does very detailed product reviews. Like, he will not review a product without thousands of rounds through it, which is awesome. I wish I kind of had those kind of capabilities to do thousands of rounds, but thankfully he does. So he found that when you shot using 9mm NATO ammo, his exploded. And if you look at the front of this here, see right down here on the bottom, there is a little chip missing out of that. And that's because the ports were just fractions of a millimeter off. And when you were using that higher end ammo, the jacket would catch either on the bottom or the top, and over time, boom, catastrophe. Thankfully, he didn't get hurt. Harry's did send out an email about a year ago saying, hey, please send these back and we will replace it. The downside to all of this was the people that contracted to make these, they just kind of gave them a bunch of crap and didn't acknowledge the problem and wouldn't fix the problem at all. I forgot the name of the company. Maybe I can annotate it if I can think of it by the time this video comes out. So he switched manufacturers and he came out with a version 2. And when you look at this one's probably got 300 rounds through it. Right now, there are no markings that the jackets are catching on it, which is perfect. Always better for things to be safe. Now, with that being said, I also picked up this war compensator for the FN 509, and the results that I got between the two really surprised me. I have a few rules when it comes to compensators on handguns, especially handguns that I intend to use for self-defense. If it's a competition gun or just a fun gun to go to the range, these rules don't typically apply. It needs to 100% cycle using range 115 grain ammo and using the OEM guide rod system. These are rules that I've made up personally for me because back in the day, I would get some Glock comps and they wouldn't cycle. So I'd go get some aftermarket lightened guide rod springs and it would cycle. But the problem was the gun wouldn't always go back into battery. And I was like, man, I'm not gonna fiddle with these springs. If it won't function, I disqualify it from my recommendations. Now, the cool thing about the FN 509 Tactical is it does come with a lightened guide rod spring. Comes with the full power and a lightened one. This one would not function using either guide rod spring. And when I say function, meaning it wouldn't lock open on the last round. Standard 115 grain ammo, I could never get it to cycle. Now, granted, I have a sample size of one. Maybe somebody else out there has had a different experience, but until I have one that actually functions, I just can't recommend it in good conscience. However, the interesting thing about this one was the day that I went for testing, I didn't have the light and guide rod spring in it, and it still functioned. It functioned with both the full power spring as well as the light and guide rod spring, and it locked open regardless if I used 115 grain ammo. I tested it with 124 grain NATO, and I tested it with my carry ammo, which is Hornady Critical Duty. I was sold from day one. And it kind of was funny because I was really wanting this one to work because this one matches the slide. It looks sexier on the gun, but unfortunately in this case, sexy doesn't work. So I'm gonna go with what actually works. Also sent me a holster for the FN509 Tactical. Unfortunately, this one is made for the Surefire X300, and for some reason, I don't have a Surefire X300. Don't ask me why. I just haven't gotten one yet. I know they're great lights. One of my good friends on Instagram, True Georgia Boy, you should give him a follow. He does some awesome training videos. Not that where he's teaching people, but where he films it. Really good page. I'll link that below. But he was telling me, hey man, it will work with the Valkyrie PL Pro from Olight. His Surefire X300 holsters work with it. Well, I tried it with this one and it doesn't work. I can't get the trigger guard to seat completely. And when I look inside, it just doesn't seat completely. I've tried loosening the retention and stuff. So I can't give you like a proper review of this holster, but it does appear to be very well made. Looks like they're using vacuum forming on the holster. I mean, it conceals really nicely, and you can draw and present and all that crazy stuff. So what is my review of all of this kind of in its entirety? Regardless if you have a standard FN509 or an FN509 Tactical, I 100% think the first thing you should do is get the Apex Tactical heavy duty firing pin. That will definitely make a big improvement or give you more peace of mind that your firing pin's not gonna break like mine and a bunch of other people's did. I can't guarantee that. I don't work for them. They don't pay me. You know, I'm not gonna make the claims for them. However, given the experience that I have, it's 100% great. If you do want to run a compensator on your FN509, from the ones I've tested, I know there's more out there that exist. I just can't recommend the War compensator as of yet. I would just go get the Henry comp if your little heart desires. If you have the FN509 standard and you want to run a comp, get the Apex Tactical barrel, and now you have a threaded barrel on a standard 509. That's just my 2 cents. But until next time, guys, let me know if you have any questions down in the comments section below. I'll do my best to answer them all.